Blood streaked across the white walls of the research lab. Dr. Hannah Wright pressed herself against the control panel, watching the security feeds with shaking hands. Something had gone terribly wrong in Section D. The creature they called Subject 9 had broken free from containment, and now it was tearing through the station like a living nightmare. The Ravager stood 12 feet tall when it rose on its hind limbs. 6 powerful legs ended in claws that could slice through steel. Armored scales covered its body like natural plating. It came from Virtus 3, a jungle world where everything evolved to kill or be killed. Subject 9 was the apex predator of that world, and right now it was hunting. Hannah had opposed capturing the creature from the start. She remembered the meeting 3 months ago when corporate executives approved the mission. They wanted to study the Ravager, to understand how such a perfect predator developed. They promised humane treatment and eventual release. Hannah knew better. She had seen how corporations treated valuable research subjects. But her objections were ignored, and Subject 9 was brought to Frontier 7 in chains. The security chief shouted into his radio, coordinating teams throughout the station. Armed guards rushed toward Section D, their weapons charged and ready. Hannah knew those weapons would barely slow the Ravager down. She had read the reports from Virtus 3. Ravagers could survive injuries that would kill most creatures. Their rage made them nearly unstoppable. But something about this escape felt different. Hannah pulled up the tracking data on her screen. The Ravager was not moving randomly. It had a destination. Every turn it made, every corridor it chose led in one specific direction. The creature was hunting with purpose. On the other side of the station, Owen Park heard the alarms and felt his stomach drop. He stood in a forgotten maintenance section that nobody visited anymore. The room around him was warm and carefully arranged. Soft materials lined a corner where 3 small shapes huddled together, chirping in distress at the loud sounds echoing through the station. Rachel Dover burst through the door, her face pale. She was a xenobiologist who had been demoted for complaining about how Subject 9 was treated. Now she and Owen shared a secret that could get them both thrown off the station or worse. "Owen, it's loose," Rachel gasped. Subject 9 broke out. "Security is going crazy." Owen looked down at the 3 baby Ravagers at his feet. They were each about the size of a large dog, their scales still soft and not fully developed. Stripe had distinctive markings along his back. Patch had a different colored spot on her shoulder. Little One was the smallest, always staying close to the others. 3 weeks ago, Owen had found them by accident. He had been doing routine maintenance in an unused storage area when he heard faint sounds coming from a cargo container. Inside, he found 3 baby Ravagers barely alive. They were freezing, starving, and terrified. The container was scheduled for disposal. Corporate had decided the babies were failed specimens not worth keeping. Owen had made a choice in that moment that changed everything. He could not let them die. He hid the cubs in this maintenance room and brought Rachel to help. Together they had kept the babies alive. They fed them, kept them warm, and watched them grow stronger each day. The cubs had learned to trust them. Stripe would climb onto Owen's lap while he worked. Patch loved when Rachel scratched behind her small head ridges. Little One would curl against Owen's chest and fall asleep to the sound of his heartbeat. Now the alarm screamed through the station, and the cubs were crying out in fear. Owen knelt down and gathered them close, making soothing sounds. Rachel paced near the door, listening to the emergency broadcasts on her communicator. "It killed 3 guards," she said, her voice shaking. "Hannah is trying to coordinate an evacuation, but the Ravager is moving too fast." Owen felt the cubs trembling against him. He had studied everything he could find about Ravagers over the past 3 weeks. He knew they were intelligent, far more than corporate scientists believed. He knew they formed strong family bonds. He knew mothers were fiercely protective of their young. A terrible understanding began to form in his mind. "Rachel," he said quietly, "pull up Subject 9's file." The complete file. Rachel's fingers flew over her datapad. Her face went white as she read. "Owen, she was pregnant when they captured her. The report says the pregnancy was terminated for safety reasons." "But it wasn't terminated," Owen said, looking down at the 3 cubs in his arms. "They took her babies. They were going to kill them, and she's been in that cage for 3 months knowing her children were gone." Rachel stared at him. The truth settled between them like a weight. Subject 9 was not on a rampage. She was not mindlessly destroying everything in her path. She was a mother searching for her children. "She's coming here," Rachel whispered. Owen, she can smell them or sense them somehow. She's coming for her cubs, the communicator crackled. Hannah's voice came through urgent and commanding. All personnel in maintenance sectors evacuate immediately. The hostile is heading your direction. You have less than 5 minutes. Owen looked at the 3 babies that he and Rachel had saved. They trusted him completely. They had no idea their real mother was alive and coming for them. We can't run, Owen said. If we take them, she'll hunt us through the whole station. If we leave them here alone, they'll be terrified. Then what do we do? Rachel asked. Owen made another choice, just as important as the one he made 3 weeks ago. He began opening the security doors, making a clear path into the maintenance room. He set the cubs down in the center of the space where they could be easily seen. We stay, he said. We let her find them. And we hope she understands that we kept them safe. Rachel stared at him like he had lost his mind. Then she took a deep breath and moved to stand beside him. You're an idiot, Owen Park, but I'm not going to let you die alone. The cubs chirped and moved close to the 2 humans who had become their whole world. In the distance, metal screamed as something incredibly strong tore through barriers. The sound grew closer, closer. Subject 9 was coming home. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling as something massive moved through the corridor outside. Owen could hear it breathing, deep and harsh like wind through a cave. The cubs pressed against his legs, making small, frightened sounds. Rachel stood frozen beside him, her hand gripping his arm so tight it hurt. Subject 9 appeared in the doorway. She was even larger than Owen expected. Her scales were dark green and black, scarred from months of fighting against her cage. Blood dripped from fresh wounds where security weapons had struck her. Her eyes were bright yellow and filled with a rage so pure it seemed to burn. When she saw Owen and Rachel, her lips pulled back to reveal teeth as long as knives. Owen forced himself to stand still. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but running would only trigger her hunting instinct. Instead, he spoke in a quiet, steady voice. They're okay. Your babies are okay. We kept them safe. Subject 9 took a step forward. The floor vibrated under her weight. Her claws scraped against the metal, creating a sound like nails on glass. She was close enough now that Owen could feel the heat radiating from her body, close enough that one swipe would end both human lives. Then the cubs saw her. Stripe chirped, a sound Owen had never heard before. It was higher, more urgent. Patch and Little One joined in, their voices creating a chorus that echoed through the small room. The 3 babies rushed forward, stumbling over their own feet in their excitement. Subject 9 stopped. Her head lowered and she made a sound deep in her chest. It was not a growl. It was something else, something that sounded almost like crying. The cubs reached their mother and climbed over her, chirping and calling. She bent down and began examining each one carefully. Her massive claws, which had just torn through steel doors, touched them with incredible gentleness. She sniffed them, checking for injuries or illness. Her whole body trembled. Owen and Rachel stood perfectly still. They were witnessing something private, something sacred. A mother reunited with children she thought were lost forever. Hannah's voice crackled through Rachel's communicator. Report! What's happening in there? We're reading the hostile in your location. Rachel slowly reached for the device. Hannah, we're okay. The Ravager found what she was looking for. What do you mean? Are you injured? No, Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. She found her cubs. Hannah, Owen, and I have been hiding her babies for 3 weeks. We saved them when corporate was going to kill them. She's not attacking. She's just a mother who wanted her children back. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Hannah spoke, her voice tight. Security is outside your position. They have orders to neutralize the threat. I need you both to evacuate now. We can't, Owen said, loud enough for the communicator to pick up his voice. If security comes in here with weapons, she'll fight to protect her cubs. More people will die. Subject 9 was still focused on her babies, but her ears swiveled toward the doorway. She had heard the voices in the corridor. Her body tensed, ready for another fight. Owen did something that Rachel later called either the bravest or stupidest thing she had ever seen. He took a step toward the Ravager. Please, he said. Look at them. Really look. Subject 9's head snapped toward him. Those burning yellow eyes fixed on his face. Owen kept talking, his voice calm despite his racing heart. We built that nest for them. See the heat lamps? They were cold when we found them. The feeding station took me 2 days to design. Rachel figured out what nutrients they needed. We took turns sleeping here to make sure they were never alone. He gestured to the soft materials lining the corner. Those blankets are from my quarters. The padding is from Rachel's spare uniforms. We gave them everything we had. Rachel found her courage and stepped forward too. She held up her data pad, moving slowly so the Ravager could see she was not reaching for a weapon. On the screen were pictures and videos. This was Stripe 3 weeks ago, she said, showing an image of a skeletal, terrified baby. And this is him yesterday. The next image showed a healthy, playful cub. She scrolled through more images. Patch learning to climb. Little one taking her first steady steps. All 3 cubs piled together sleeping. Videos of them playing with Owen, exploring their small space, learning to trust. We didn't save them for research, Rachel continued. We saved them because they deserved to live. Because looking into their eyes we could see they were people, not specimens. We loved them. Subject 9 stared at the screen. Her breathing had changed, no longer harsh with rage. She looked from the images to her cubs, then to the nest Owen had built. She moved to the feeding station and examined it carefully. Her claws touched the heat lamps, still warm from being used that morning. The cubs climbed over their mother, chirping happily. Stripe tried to get Owen's attention, confused about why his human was standing so far away. The baby moved between his mother and Owen, calling to both. Subject 9 watched this. She saw how comfortable her child was with the human. How Patch kept looking back at Rachel with trust in her eyes. How little one moved freely between the Ravagers and the humans without fear. Outside, the security chief's voice boomed. Dr. Wright, we need to move now. That thing has already killed 3 people. Hold position, Hannah ordered. Nobody moves. That's a direct command. With respect, Doctor, we have authorization to neutralize any threat to station personnel. And I'm telling you that if you go in there shooting, you'll make things worse. Give me time. Subject 9 heard all of this. Her ears tracked the sounds of armed humans gathering outside. She could smell their weapons, their fear, their readiness to kill. Her muscles bunched, preparing for battle. Then Stripe did something remarkable. The cub moved to stand directly in front of Owen, his small body positioned between the human and his mother. Patch joined him and little one came last. The 3 babies stood in a line facing their mother, making urgent sounds. Owen realized what they were doing. They were protecting him. These cubs that he and Rachel had raised, fed, and loved were now trying to shield them from danger. Subject 9 stared at her children. Something shifted in her eyes. The rage was still there, but it was joined by confusion and what looked almost like understanding. She had spent 3 months in a cage, tortured by humans who saw her as nothing more than a research subject. But these humans were different. These humans had saved her babies when other humans wanted them dead. She made a decision. Subject 9 moved forward, and Rachel grabbed Owen's hand, certain they were about to die. But the Ravager walked past them. She positioned her massive body between the humans and the doorway. Between Owen and Rachel and the armed security team outside, she was protecting them. Hannah watched through the security cameras and felt tears on her face. Everyone stand down, she ordered. That's final.
Anyone who fires a weapon answers to me personally. Inside the maintenance room, Owen slowly sank to the floor.
His legs would not hold him anymore. Rachel joined him, and the 3 cubs immediately climbed into their laps, happy to have everyone together. Subject 9 looked back at them, at her children nestled trustingly against the humans who had become their family. For the first time in 3 months, the Ravager felt something other than rage and pain. She felt hope. News spread through Frontier 7 like electricity through wire. Within hours, everyone on the station knew about the Ravager mother and her cubs. They knew about Owen and Rachel hiding the babies for 3 weeks. They knew about Subject 9 standing guard over the humans who had saved her children. Corporate executives were furious. The station administrator demanded immediate action. Security protocols were clear. Dangerous alien life forms could not be allowed to roam free. Subject 9 had killed 3 people during her escape. She was a threat that needed to be eliminated, but something unexpected happened. The station crew refused. It started with junior security officers who watched the camera feeds. They saw the cubs protecting Owen and Rachel. They saw Subject 9 examining the nest built with such care. They saw a mother reunited with her babies, and they could not bring themselves to destroy that. Maintenance workers blocked the corridors leading to the maintenance section. Engineers disabled security protocols that would have allowed remote termination. Scientists who had remained silent about the illegal capture operation suddenly found their voices and spoke up. Hannah became the center of a storm. She fielded calls from corporate headquarters. from station administration, from legal departments and ethics committees. Everyone wanted her to resolve the situation. Everyone had opinions about what should happen next, but Hannah was too busy reading files she had never been allowed to access before. Rachel had sent her everything. The complete documentation of Subject 9's capture, the records showing she had been pregnant, the orders to destroy the cubs, the treatment reports detailing months of pain and isolation. Hannah also read Rachel's hidden logs about the cubs. Every feeding, every milestone, medical treatments for infections that would have killed them without intervention, notes about their personalities, their preferences, their growing trust in their human caretakers. She made calls of her own, urgent ones. Inside the maintenance room, time moved strangely. Owen and Rachel took turns sleeping, though neither rested well. Subject 9 never slept. She stayed alert, watching the door, listening to sounds in the corridors. The cubs adapted quickly to having their mother back, but they still sought out Owen and Rachel for comfort and play. Owen brought food using supplies from his personal storage and what Rachel could sneak from the biology labs. Subject 9 watched him carefully at first, but when the cubs ate without hesitation, she accepted the offerings. Her wounds were healing fast, showing the incredible regeneration that made Ravagers so hard to kill. Rachel studied Subject 9 whenever the Ravager allowed it. She documented behaviors that had never been recorded before. The gentle way the mother groomed her cubs. The specific chirps she used to call them or warn them. The way she would touch noses with each baby, as if counting them and reassuring herself they were real. On the second day, something changed. Subject 9 moved away from the door and approached Owen directly. He froze, uncertain what was happening. The massive creature lowered her head until it was level with his chest. Then she pressed her forehead against him gently and made a low rumbling sound. Rachel gasped. "Owen, do you know what that is?" "What?" "It's a Ravager trust gesture. She's acknowledging you as safe, as pack." Owen raised his hand slowly and touched Subject 9's head. Her scales were warm and surprisingly smooth where they were not damaged. She allowed the touch for several seconds before pulling back and returning to her guard position. "We're in her family now," Rachel whispered. "She's claimed us." The cubs seemed to understand this too. They moved more freely between their mother and the humans, no longer worried about divided loyalties. Stripe brought Owen a piece of synthetic material to play with, the same way he brought toys to his mother. Patch sat with Rachel while Rachel worked on her datapad, occasionally chirping to get attention. But outside, the situation was deteriorating. Corporate sent specialists to Frontier 7, security consultants with experience in dangerous alien containment, legal experts who cited regulations and liability concerns, a crisis management team that cared only about protecting the company's reputation. They arrived on the third day. The lead consultant was a cold woman named Director Stevens. She reviewed the situation for exactly 40 minutes before delivering her decision. The creature designated Subject 9 will be terminated. The cubs will be contained and transferred to a secure facility. The 2 employees who hid unauthorized life forms will be prosecuted to the full extent of company policy. Hannah stood in the station command center, surrounded by screens showing the maintenance room where Owen, Rachel, Subject 9, and the cubs waited. "No," she said. Director Stevens looked at her with ice in her eyes. "I wasn't asking for your opinion, Dr. Wright. I'm informing you of corporate's decision." "Then let me inform you of something," Hannah replied. She pulled up files on the main screen. Subject 9 was captured in violation of 3 interstellar treaties. Her cubs were scheduled for termination without proper authorization. This entire operation has been illegal from the start. Those are internal matters. I sent everything to the Interstellar Conservation Coalition yesterday. They're en route now. They'll arrive in approximately 6 hours. The command center went silent. The coalition had authority that superseded corporate policy. They could shut down operations, levy massive fines, and press criminal charges. Director Stevens's face went pale. "You had no right." "I had every right," Hannah said. "Ravagers are classified as protected sapient species. What was done to Subject 9 and her cubs is not just illegal. It's a crime against sentience." Director Stevens recovered quickly. "The coalition will still require the creature to be contained. She killed 3 people. That cannot be ignored." "She killed 3 people who were part of the team that tortured her and stole her children," Hannah corrected. "I think any mother would do the same." An urgent message appeared on Hannah's screen. She read it and felt her heart race. The coalition ship just jumped into the system early. They're arriving within the hour. Owen's communicator buzzed. It was Hannah. Owen, Rachel, listen carefully. Help is coming. The coalition is almost here, but corporate is going to try something before they arrive. Be ready. Rachel looked at Owen. Ready for what? They got their answer 10 minutes later. The lights in the maintenance room flickered and died. Emergency lights cast everything in red. The door began to seal, heavy locks sliding into place. Subject 9 roared, a sound that shook the walls. She understood what was happening. She was being caged again. The cubs cried out in fear, scrambling to their mother. Owen grabbed his communicator. Hannah, what's going on? Stevens authorized containment protocols. She's trying to seal you all in before the coalition arrives. I'm trying to override, but she has authorization codes I can't break. Rachel checked the environmental controls. Her face went white. Owen, she's purging the air. We have maybe 10 minutes before there's not enough oxygen. Subject 9 threw herself against the door. The metal groaned but held. She was powerful. But the door was designed to hold creatures like her. She roared again, furious and desperate. The cubs huddled together, terrified. Owen made a decision. He had made several important choices over the past 3 weeks. This was just one more. He moved to the environmental panel and began working. Rachel joined him, her hands flying over the controls. What are you doing? She asked, opening the door, Owen said. If we stay in here, we die. Subject 9 breaks out, she'll kill anyone in her way to protect her cubs. More people die. I'm not letting that happen. But if you open it now, I'm betting she understands we're on the same side. Owen entered the final commands. The door locks disengaged with a hiss. Subject 9 stopped attacking and turned to look at him. Owen met those yellow eyes and saw intelligence looking back. We trust you, he said. Now you have to trust us. The coalition is coming. People who will actually help. But we need to stay calm until they arrive. The door opened. Subject 9 could leave, could run through the station, could kill everyone who had hurt her. Instead, she moved back to her position between the humans and the door. She gathered her cubs close with gentle nudges. Then she waited. Rachel started breathing again. You're insane. You know that, right? Probably, Owen agreed. Hannah's voice came through the communicator, shaking with relief. The coalition ship just docked. They're boarding now. Director Stevens appeared in the corridor outside, flanked by security. She saw the open door and her face twisted with rage. Seal that door. Contain the threat. Then a new voice cut through the chaos. Nobody moves. 3 figures walked down the corridor. They wore the distinctive uniforms of the Interstellar Conservation Coalition. The leader was tall, with features that suggested he was not entirely human. He looked at Subject 9, then at Owen and Rachel and the cubs, and finally at Director Stevens. I am Senior Investigator Darren Cole. This operation is now under Coalition authority. Everyone will remain calm while we sort out this mess. Subject 9 watched the newcomers carefully. Owen spoke quietly to her and she rumbled in response. The cubs sensed the tension and pressed close to both their mother and the humans. Investigator Cole stepped into the maintenance room. He moved slowly, respectfully. Subject 9 tracked his every movement but did not attack. He looked at the nest Owen built, the feeding station, the careful arrangements that spoke of genuine care. Tell me everything, he said. Investigator Cole spent 3 hours interviewing everyone involved. He spoke with Owen and Rachel while Subject 9 listened from her protective position nearby. He reviewed the files Hannah provided. He examined the maintenance room where 3 babies had been kept alive through determination and compassion. He watched the security footage of the escape and the reunion. His team included specialists in Ravager biology and behavior. They observed Subject 9 from a careful distance, taking notes and speaking quietly among themselves. One of them, a woman named Dr. Iris Chen, had studied Ravagers for 20 years. She approached the maintenance room with tears streaming down her face. I never thought I would see this, she said. A Ravager accepting humans as pack, allowing them near her cubs. It should not be possible. Why not? Owen asked. Dr. Chen looked at Subject 9 with deep sadness. Because we have given them no reason to trust us. My entire career has been spent documenting how we destroy their world. Corporate mining operations have wiped out 70% of their habitat on Virtus 3. Ravagers are critically endangered. There might be fewer than 300 left in the wild. Rachel felt sick. 300? Subject 9 was a matriarch, a leader of one of the last stable breeding groups. Her capture removed vital genetic diversity from an already dying population, and her cubs, Dr. Chen's voice broke. Every single cub is precious. The species cannot afford to lose even one. Owen looked at Stripe, Patch, and Little One playing together near their mother's feet. 3 babies the corporate had tried to kill. 3 lives that represented hope for an entire species. Investigator Cole finished his interviews and called everyone to the station command center. Director Stevens stood rigid, her face carefully neutral. Hannah waited with barely controlled anxiety. Owen and Rachel came last, looking exhausted from days of stress and little sleep. Subject 9 would not let them go alone. She followed, her cubs trailing behind her. The station crew moved aside to let them pass. Many stopped to stare at the Ravager mother and her babies. Some looked afraid. Others looked moved by the sight of the family staying together. The command center had been cleared of everyone except essential personnel. Investigator Cole stood before the main screens, his expression grave. I have reviewed all evidence in this case. The illegal capture of Subject 9, the termination order for her cubs, the actions of Owen Park and Rachel Dover in saving those cubs, the escape and subsequent events. He paused. This is one of the clearest cases of corporate misconduct I have encountered in 15 years with the Coalition. Director Stevens started to speak, but Cole raised his hand. Frontier 7's operations are suspended pending full investigation. Criminal charges will be filed against multiple individuals involved in the capture operation. The station administrator will be removed from position immediately. Relief flooded through Hannah. Owen grabbed Rachel's hand. Subject 9 rumbled, sensing the change in mood even if she did not understand the words. But Cole was not finished. However, we have a complicated situation. Subject 9 killed 3 people during her escape. While the circumstances explain her actions, we cannot simply ignore those deaths. The station crew is traumatized. There are legal considerations. Owen's relief turned to dread. What are you saying? I'm saying that Subject 9 and her cubs cannot stay here. For their safety and everyone else's, they need to be relocated. Where? Rachel asked, though she already knew the answer. Home, Dr. Chen said softly. Back to Virtus 3, back to their family group if it still exists. Subject 9 made a sound, low and mournful. Somehow Owen knew she understood. She was going home, but she was going to lose the humans who saved her children. The cubs sensed their mother's distress. Stripe climbed onto Owen's leg, chirping urgently. Patch pressed against Rachel. Little One moved between Dr. Chen and the other humans, confused by all the emotion in the room. Investigator Cole watched this with an expression that was hard to read. There is another complication. These cubs have imprinted on humans during a critical development period. They have learned to see humans as safe, as family. Releasing them into the wild without transition support could be dangerous for them. What kind of transition support? Hannah asked. Ideally, they would be reintroduced gradually, monitored to ensure they adapt to their natural environment, help to reconnect with their species while maintaining the security they have learned to associate with certain humans. Rachel's heart was pounding. Certain humans? Dr. Chen spoke up. The cubs know Owen and Rachel. Trust them completely. Subject 9 has accepted them as pack. The ideal reintegration team would include familiar faces. Owen stared at her. Are you saying? I'm saying we would like to offer you both positions with the Coalition's Virtus 3 rehabilitation program. 6-month contract, possibly longer. You would accompany Subject 9 and her cubs back to their home world, help them transition back to the wild. Document the process for conservation purposes. Rachel looked at Owen. Owen looked at the 3 cubs that had become the center of his world for the past 3 weeks. Subject 9 watched him with those intelligent yellow eyes. I'll do it, Owen said. Me too, Rachel added immediately. Director Stevens finally found her voice. They are Frontier 7 employees under contract. You cannot simply... Their contracts are void, Investigator Cole said coldly. Frontier 7 no longer has operational authority. Owen Park and Rachel Dover are free to accept employment elsewhere. Hannah smiled for the first time in days. I think I speak for the entire station crew when I say we support their decision. The preparations took 2 weeks. A specialized transport ship was brought in, designed to carry Ravagers safely and comfortably. The Coalition team worked to create an environment that would help Subject 9 and her cubs adjust to the journey home. Owen and Rachel packed their belongings, still not quite believing this was happening. They were leaving Frontier 7, leaving everything familiar. They were going to an alien jungle world to help reintegrate a family they had saved. The station crew threw them a farewell gathering. People who had never spoken to Owen before came to shake his hand. Engineers who had helped Rachel sneak supplies brought gifts for the journey. Even tough security officers got emotional saying goodbye. Subject 9 watched all of this with interest. She had learned to differentiate between threatening humans and safe ones. She allowed certain people to approach her cubs now, as long as Owen or Rachel was present. The cubs were growing fast, becoming more confident and playful each day. On the day of departure, the entire station gathered to see them off. The transport ship waited at the docking bay, its cargo hold converted into a miniature Virtus 3 environment. Plants from the jungle world, proper temperature and humidity, space for Subject 9 to move freely. Hannah hugged Owen and Rachel tightly. You started something important here. You showed everyone that compassion matters more than protocol, that doing the right thing is worth the risk. Owen looked at the crowd of people who had fought to protect Subject 9 and her cubs, ordinary station crew who had stood up to corporate authority. We didn't do it alone. No, Hannah agreed. You didn't, but you did it first. Subject 9 boarded the ship with her cubs following close behind. Owen and Rachel came last, turning to wave at the assembled crowd. The station crew waved back, many of them crying. As the ship detached from Frontier 7, Owen stood at a viewing port and watched the station grow smaller. Rachel joined him, and the three cubs climbed over their feet, excited by the new environment. Are you scared? Rachel asked. Terrified, Owen admitted. We're going to a jungle planet full of creatures that can kill us. We have no idea if Subject 9's family group still exists. We don't know if we can really help them adapt, but we're going to try. Yes, Owen said, watching Stripe chase Patch through the specially designed habitat. We're going to try. Subject 9 appeared beside them. She looked out at the stars, at the vast space between her and her home. Then she looked at Owen and Rachel, and made the low rumbling sound that they had learned meant contentment, safety, family. Dr. Chen joined them, checking her datapad. We'll reach Virtus 3 in approximately 3 weeks. I'm going to teach you everything I know about Ravager communication and behavior. You'll need to understand their social structures, their hunting patterns, their territorial markers. 3 weeks to learn everything? Rachel asked. Dr. Chen smiled. You've already learned the most important thing. You learned to see them as people worth saving. Everything else is just details. The ship accelerated, leaving Frontier 7 behind. Ahead lay Virtus 3, a green jewel hanging in space. Somewhere on that world, Subject 9's family waited. They did not know she was coming home. They did not know she had survived, but soon they would be reunited. A mother and her cubs returned to their people, and 2 humans who had refused to let them die would be there to help them find their way home. Virtus 3 filled the viewing screens. The planet was beautiful in a way that took Owen's breath away. Thick clouds swirled over endless green jungles. 3 small moons orbited close enough to see clearly. The atmosphere glowed with bioluminescent organisms that made the night side shimmer with blue and purple light. Subject 9 pressed against the viewing port, her whole body trembling. She made sounds Owen had never heard before, urgent and desperate. The cubs responded, climbing over each other to see what had captured their mother's attention. She recognizes it, Dr. Chen said quietly. Even from orbit, she knows she's home. The past 3 weeks had been intense. Owen and Rachel studied constantly, learning everything Dr. Chen could teach them about Ravagers. They learned the different sounds that meant danger, food, comfort, or family. They learned how to read body language, how to identify territorial markers, how to recognize the signs of a healthy habitat. The cubs grew noticeably during the journey. Stripe was now the size of a large wolf, his scales hardening into proper armor. Patch had discovered she could climb almost anything, spending hours exploring the vertical spaces of the ship. Little One remained the smallest but was also the smartest, figuring out puzzles and mechanisms faster than her siblings. Subject 9 had gradually relaxed during the journey. Away from the station, away from the cage and the pain, she became different. Owen saw glimpses of what she must have been like before capture. Playful with her cubs, curious about new things, patient when teaching her babies how to hunt using the practice equipment Dr. Chen had installed. But now, seeing her homeworld after 6 months away, all of that calm shattered. Subject 9 needed to be on that planet. Needed it with an urgency that bordered on panic. We're beginning descent, the pilot announced. Landing site is secure. Coalition ground team is already established. The ship dropped into atmosphere. Everything shook as they pierced through clouds. Then suddenly they were below the weather, and Owen saw Virtus 3 as Subject 9 saw it. Jungle stretched in every direction. Trees hundreds of feet tall created a canopy so thick it looked solid. Rivers cut through the green like silver veins. In the distance, mountains rose with peaks wrapped in mist. The air itself seemed to shimmer with life. The ship landed in a cleared area where the Coalition had built a small base camp. Prefabricated structures housed equipment and supplies. Sensor arrays monitored the surrounding jungle. A medical facility stood ready for emergencies. This would be home for the next 6 months. Dr. Chen addressed the team as they prepared to disembark. We're not releasing Subject 9 and the Cubs immediately. They need time to adjust. The Cubs have never been in a real jungle. Subject 9 has been away for 6 months. We proceed carefully. But when the cargo door opened and the smells of Virtus 3 flooded in, careful went out the window. Subject 9 roared, a sound so powerful it echoed through the jungle. Distant calls answered her. Other Ravagers hearing one of their own. The Cubs went wild with excitement. All their instincts were firing at once, smells they had never encountered but somehow recognized. Sounds that meant something deep in their genetic memory. This was what they were built for. Subject 9 looked at Owen and Rachel. She made a questioning sound and Owen understood. She was asking permission or maybe saying goodbye. Go, Owen said, his throat tight. Find your family. The Ravager mother moved to the edge of the clearing. She called to her cubs and they rushed to her side. Then together they walked into the jungle. Within seconds, the green swallowed them completely. Rachel wiped her eyes. Is that it? Are they just gone? Dr. Chen checked her monitoring equipment. We tagged them with subcutaneous trackers, harmless and dissolvable within a year. We can follow their movements without interfering. She looked up from her screen. They're not going far. Subject 9 is cautious. She's exploring, checking if things are as she remembers. The first day was quiet. Subject 9 kept her cubs close, moving through familiar territory. The tracking data showed she was heading toward an area Dr. Chen identified as the range her family group had used before her capture. On the second day, something changed. The tracker showed Subject 9 had stopped moving. She stayed in one location for hours. Other heat signatures appeared nearby. Large ones. She found them, Dr. Chen said, her voice filled with wonder. She found her family group. Owen wanted to go see, but Dr. Chen refused. This is their time. Their reunion. We watch from a distance and let them be Ravagers without humans interfering. But on the third day, something unexpected happened. Stripe's tracker showed him moving away from the family group, moving back toward the base camp. Is he lost? Rachel asked, worried. I don't think so, Dr. Chen said, watching the tracker's path. He's moving with purpose. He knows exactly where he's going. An hour later, Stripe emerged from the jungle at the edge of the clearing. He had grown so much in just 3 weeks. Nearly adult-sized now, with scales that could turn away small-caliber weapons. He looked fierce and wild until he saw Owen. Then he chirped the same sound he had made as a tiny cub, and bounded across the clearing like an overgrown puppy. Owen laughed and braced himself as Stripe crashed into him. The young Ravager was too big for lap-sitting now, but he tried anyway, nearly knocking Owen over in his enthusiasm. I missed you too, buddy, Owen said, scratching behind Stripe's head ridges. Stripe stayed for an hour, accepting food and attention. Then he heard a distant call from the jungle, his mother summoning him. He responded immediately, touching his nose to Owen's hand before racing back into the trees. Well, Dr. Chen said, smiling, I guess they haven't forgotten you. This became the pattern. Every few days one of the cubs would visit. Sometimes all three came together, bringing chaos and joy to the organized base camp. They would play with Owen and Rachel, explore the human structures with curiosity, then return to their mother when she called. Subject 9 herself came once, a week after the initial release. She approached the base camp carefully, stopping at the tree line. Owen and Rachel went to meet her, moving slowly and respectfully. The Ravager mother looked healthy, well-fed and content. The wounds from her captivity were fully healed. She examined Owen and Rachel as if checking that they were okay, then made a low rumbling sound. Contentment. Gratitude, maybe. Then she turned and melted back into the jungle. Dr. Chen documented everything, the cubs learning to hunt under their mother's guidance, the family group accepting the youngsters despite their strange human scent, Subject 9 reclaiming her position as matriarch, the cubs visiting the base camp but always returning to their wild family. This is unprecedented, Dr. Chen said during a video call with the coalition headquarters. We're witnessing the first successful cross-species familial bond with ravagers. The cubs maintain their connection to Owen and Rachel, while fully integrating into ravager society. It changes everything we thought we knew about their capacity for interspecies relationships. Months passed. The cubs grew into strong juveniles. They learned to hunt, to fight, to survive in the brutal jungle environment. But they never forgot the two humans who had saved their lives. Owen and Rachel adapted to Virtus 3. They learned to read the jungle's moods, to recognize dangerous areas, to move through the undergrowth without causing offense to territorial creatures. They documented ravager behavior, adding valuable data to the limited knowledge about the species. But mostly they just watched Subject 9 teach her cubs the skills they needed, watched the family group thrive with 3 new young members, watched as Stripe, Patch, and Little One became wild ravagers who happened to have human friends. On the 6-month anniversary of their arrival, Owen and Rachel sat at the edge of the clearing, watching the sunset paint the jungle in gold and orange. The contract was officially complete. They could go home. Do you want to leave? Rachel asked. Owen thought about Frontier 7, about his old life fixing equipment and following procedures. Then he thought about Stripe's visits, about watching Little One learn to hunt, about the way Subject 9 would sometimes just sit near them as if enjoying their company. No, he said. I don't think I do. Me neither, Rachel agreed. Dr. Chen found them there an hour later. I spoke with Coalition headquarters. They're extending the program. We're establishing a permanent research station here. They asked if you two would like to stay on permanently. Owen and Rachel looked at each other and smiled. From the jungle, a familiar call rang out. Stripe, checking if his humans were still there. Owen called back using the ravager sounds Dr. Chen had taught him. An answering chirp confirmed Stripe had heard and understood. We'll stay, Owen said. That night, Subject 9 brought her entire family group to the clearing's edge. 8 adult ravagers, including cubs that were not hers. They gathered in the shadows, just visible in the base camp's lights. Subject 9 stood at the front, her own cubs beside her. She looked at Owen and Rachel across the distance, made a sound deep and resonant. The other ravagers joined in, creating a chorus that shook the air. Dr. Chen had tears streaming down her face. Do you know what that is? That's a recognition call. They're acknowledging you as friends of the group. As allies, you're under their protection now. Owen felt something break open in his chest. 6 months ago, he had been a nobody technician on a space station. He had found 3 dying babies and made a choice to save them. Now he stood on an alien world, accepted by one of the most dangerous species in known space, not as a researcher or a scientist. As family, Subject 9 turned and led her family back into the jungle. But Stripe lingered for a moment, looking back at Owen. Then he followed his mother into the darkness, wild and free and exactly where he belonged. 2 years passed on Virtus 3. The Coalition research station grew from a temporary camp into a proper facility. More scientists arrived to study the recovering ravager population. Conservation efforts expanded as mining operations were shut down and habitat restoration began. Owen and Rachel became permanent members of the team. They were not scientists in the traditional sense, but their knowledge of ravager behavior was unmatched. They understood things that could not be learned from observation alone. They understood what it meant to be trusted by creatures who had every reason to fear and hate humans. Stripe visited regularly, now a fully grown adult male. He stood 8 feet tall and was built like a tank. His scales had darkened to deep green, marked with the scars of jungle life. He had his own territory now, overlapping with his mother's but distinct. Sometimes he brought other young ravagers with him, showing them that these particular humans were safe. Patch had become a skilled hunter, fast and clever. She visited less often than Stripe, but always brought gifts when she came. Fresh kills, interesting plants, once a shiny piece of metal she had found somewhere. Owen kept these offerings in his quarters, treasures from an alien friend. Little One, still the smallest of the 3, had surprised everyone by becoming a mother herself. She brought her cubs to meet Owen and Rachel when they were just weeks old. Two tiny ravagers who looked at the humans with curious eyes and no fear. A third generation learning that humans could be friends. Subject 9 was now the unquestioned matriarch of the largest ravager family group on Virtus 3. Her territory sprawled across miles of prime jungle. She had successfully raised not just her original 3 cubs, but adopted several orphans whose mothers had fallen to habitat loss before the conservation efforts began. She still visited Owen and Rachel, though rarely. Usually when something important happened, she brought them her new cubs to meet. She showed them her expanded territory. Once, when Rachel was injured during a jungle survey, Subject 9 appeared and stood guard until help arrived, keeping other predators away from the vulnerable human. The relationship between humans and ravagers became the subject of intense academic study. Dr. Chen published papers that changed xenobiology forever. Other researchers came to Virtus 3 to observe this impossible bond. Some were skeptical. Some were amazed. All of them had to accept the evidence before their eyes. Humans and ravagers could be allies, could be friends, could build trust despite a history of violence and exploitation. But the story that started it all, the story of 3 dying cubs and 2 humans who refused to let them die, that story became something else. It became a symbol, proof that individual choice mattered, that compassion could bridge impossible divides. News feeds across human space carried the story. Children watched videos of Stripe playing with Owen. Environmental groups used images of Subject 9 and her thriving family in their campaigns. The Ravagers became the face of conservation efforts throughout the galaxy. More importantly, Virtus 3's success inspired similar programs on other worlds. Species that had been exploited, hunted, and displaced were given new chances. Conservation zones were established. Rehabilitation programs began. The Coalition's authority expanded, protecting more creatures from corporate exploitation. Hannah visited once 2 years after the initial events. She walked through the research station with wonder on her face. She met Stripe, who tolerated her presence because Owen vouched for her. She watched from a distance as Subject 9 taught her newest cubs to hunt. "You did this," she told Owen and Rachel. "You saved 3 babies and it changed everything." Owen shook his head. "We just made a choice. The same choice anyone should make when they see suffering they can stop." "But most people don't," Hannah said. "Most people follow the rules, protect themselves, stay safe." "You risked everything," Rachel smiled. "We gained everything. Look around. This is our life now. We have friends who could tear us apart but choose to protect us. We wake up every day in paradise. We're part of something that matters." A call echoed through the jungle, Stripe announcing his presence before visiting. Owen called back, and soon the massive ravager emerged from the trees. He had brought another young male with him, a ravager Owen did not recognize. Stripe made introduction sounds, presenting the stranger to his human friends. The other ravager watched nervously, clearly uncomfortable around humans. But he trusted Stripe, and Stripe trusted Owen. Slowly, carefully, the young male approached. Owen stayed still, letting the ravager set the pace. The creature sniffed him, examining this strange being that his friend accepted so completely. Then tentatively he allowed Owen to touch his head. "Another one learns that humans can be trusted," Rachel said quietly. Stripe rumbled with satisfaction, proud of himself for bridging another gap. The 2 ravagers stayed for an hour before returning to the jungle. But the stranger would remember this experience, would remember that some humans were safe, would maybe someday bring his own cubs to meet these strange, soft creatures who respected the jungle and its people. Owen stood at the edge of the clearing that evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Virtus 3's 3 moons rose in sequence, their light turning the jungle silver. Bioluminescent organisms began to glow, creating patterns of blue and green that danced through the trees. Rachel joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. They had learned to appreciate the quiet moments between the chaos of jungle life. "Do you ever think about going back?" she asked. "Back to human space, to a normal life?" Owen thought about Frontier 7, about the person he used to be, a technician following procedures, living a safe and predictable life. Then he thought about finding 3 dying cubs in a freezing container, about the choice he made in that moment. "This is normal now," he said. "This is home." A sound in the jungle made them both turn. Subject 9 emerged into the clearing, her movement fluid and powerful. She was not alone. 3 adult ravagers came with her, and half a dozen cubs of various ages. Stripe, Patch, and Little One led the group, with Little One's own babies tumbling around her feet. The family group settled at the clearing's edge. Cubs played in the fading light while adults rested and groomed each other. Subject 9 positioned herself where she could see both her family and the 2 humans who had saved her children. She made a sound, soft and low. The cubs quieted, and for a moment the jungle itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Subject 9 rose and approached Owen and Rachel directly. She stopped just in front of them, towering over their human forms. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered her massive head and pressed her forehead against Owen's chest, then Rachel's. The trust gesture, the acknowledgement of family. Her cubs watched this, learning that these humans were different, learning that trust was possible, learning that the scars of the past did not have to define the future. Subject 9 returned to her family, gathering them with gentle nudges and quiet calls. They would sleep near the base camp tonight, safe in the knowledge that these humans meant no harm. In the morning, they would return to the deep jungle to their wild lives, but they would come back. They always came back. Dr. Chen appeared beside Owen and Rachel, her camera documenting the scene. "Do you know what I see when I look at this?" she asked. "What?" Rachel replied. "Hope," Dr. Chen said simply. "Proof that we can do better, that we can fix what we've broken, that we can be worthy of sharing the universe with creatures like them." Owen watched Stripe playing with his younger siblings, teaching them the same gentle roughhousing that Owen had played with him years ago. He watched Little One grooming her cubs while Patch kept watch for dangers. He watched Subject 9, regal and powerful, finally at peace after so much pain. "We found 3 dying babies," Owen said. "We just didn't want them to die alone and afraid. That's all it was. That's all it should ever be." "That's everything," Dr. Chen corrected. "That's humanity at its best. Not our technology or our weapons or our expansion across the stars. Our ability to see suffering and choose to stop it. Our capacity to care about lives that are nothing like our own." The Ravager family settled for sleep, a peaceful pile of scales and claws and trust. Subject 9 kept one eye open, always alert, always protecting. But she was not protecting her cubs from the humans nearby. She was protecting the humans who had become part of her family. Owen finished his coffee and headed back to his quarters. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new observations, new moments of connection between species. But tonight he was content. He had made a choice 2 years ago in a cold maintenance room on a distant space station. He had chosen compassion over obedience. He had chosen to save 3 helpless creatures that the universe said were not worth saving. And that choice had led him here, to a jungle world under alien stars, to friendships that should not be possible, to a life that mattered in ways he never imagined when he was just a technician, fixing equipment and following rules. Rachel stopped him at the door to his quarters. "Hey, Owen? Yeah? Thanks for being stubborn enough to save 3 freezing cubs." Owen smiled. "Thanks for being crazy enough to help me." From the jungle, Stripe called out one last time. "A good night, maybe." A reminder that he was there, watching over his human friends the way they had once watched over him. Owen called back. The sound strange in his human throat but understood by those who mattered. The jungle replied with chirps and rumbles. A whole family of ravagers acknowledging the human who had refused to let them die. And in that moment, under 3 moons and 1,000 stars, Owen Park knew he was exactly where he belonged. The end.